In section 8.6, we are studying time and temperature, specifically to convert one unit of time to another, and to convert between Celsius and Fahrenheit temperatures using these two formulas. Degrees Fahrenheit equals 9/5 times degrees Celsius plus 32, and degree Celsius equals 5/9 times F minus 32 in parentheses. So the units of time, and I'm sure you're familiar with them, is 1 day with 24 hours, and 1 hour equals 60 minutes, 1 minute equals 60 seconds, 1 year equals 365 and 1/4 day, and 1 week is equal to 7 days. Maybe some of you wonder about 1/4 of a day. Well, the year is not really 365 days long. It is 365 days and 1/4 of a day. And that is why we have leap years every 4 years to account for the extra day. So the Earth revolves completely around the Sun in 365 and 1/4 days. And so you're going to have 1/4 of a day on the calendar. We give each year 365 days, and every 4th year 366 days, the so-called leap year. Unless it is a year at the beginning of a century that's not divisible by 400. Okay, so let's look at some exercises here. And the first one is converting 2 hours into minutes. So we begin by noting that 2 hours is the same as 2 times 1 hour. And since 1 hour has 60 minutes, it is 2 times 60 minutes, and that's equal to 120 minutes. To express 4 years in terms of days, we write this as 4 years equals 4 times 1 year. And 1 year has 365 and 1/4 day. So that's equal to 4 times 1,461 divided by 4. So here we are converting the mixed numerals into one fraction. And it's also, of course, day. And since the 4's cancel, the answer is 1,461 days. So, 1,461 days. Similarly, exercise number 3, 1 day is equal to 1 times 1 day. And that's 1 times, a day has 24 hours. And since 1 hour has 60 minutes, the answer is 1,465 440 minutes. And when we look at the guided solution exercise, we are supposed to convert 168 hours into weeks. So we know 168 hours is 168 hours times 1 day, and 1 day has 24 hours. And 1 week has 7 days. So the hours cancel and the days cancel, and only week remains. So in other words, 168 hours, or 168 now, divided by 7 times 24, and 7 times 24 is 168, and 168 divided by 168 is equal to 1. In other words, 168 hours equals 1 week. Next, we'll be talking about temperature, and there are 2 basic temperature scales, Fahrenheit for American measure and Celsius for metric measure. And so here we can see that at 100 degrees Celsius, water boils, which is equal to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and normal body temperature is about 36 degrees, about 97.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And then room temperature, 20 degrees Celsius, and that's about 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And another important marker is 0 degrees Celsius. That's when water freezes, and that, of course, is equal to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So here are the temperature scales, and that's what they look like. And so the next few exercises, what we're going to do is we're going to convert degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius, and we're supposed to approximate this to the nearest 10 degrees. And we're going to use these 2 temperature scales as an approximation. So for the exercise 5, 180 degrees Fahrenheit, so we use the scale, and so 180 degrees Fahrenheit, that's equal to about 80 degrees Celsius. So and the other one at 25 degrees Fahrenheit on a cold day, to see what that looks like in degrees Celsius, we go to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's between 20 and 32, so that's very close to 0 degrees Celsius. It's not exactly, but it's 0 degrees Celsius. So 0 degrees Celsius. And minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So here we're at minus 10. And you can see that corresponds to about minus 20 degrees Celsius. Now, you probably know what 180 degrees Fahrenheit means in terms of what it represents or can represent, like brewing coffee, or 25 degrees. It's kind of a cold day, and minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit, if you ever experienced it, you know it's really, really cold. Now, when we go to the next few exercises here, we're converting to Fahrenheit from degrees Celsius, and you may not be familiar with what 25 degrees Celsius means. So they helpfully explained that that's a warm day at the beach. So let's do the same thing. We use the temperature scales. So then 25 degrees Celsius would be about here, and we note that that's about equal to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So 20 degrees Celsius, 25 degrees Celsius, about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. These are all approximations. Later on we learn how to calculate these temperatures precisely. Next one is 40 degrees Celsius, the temperature of a patient with a high fever. Again, we go to 40 degrees Celsius on the scale here, and we note that that's about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, these are approximations. So 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And then last we have 10 degrees Celsius, the temperature of a cold bath. So let's go to 10 degrees Celsius to find the equivalent degrees in Fahrenheit. So we see that's about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And when I came from Germany to this country, in Germany, of course, we have degrees Celsius. But coming to this country, I didn't really know what 70 degrees Fahrenheit feels like. And so in the beginning, I always converted it with numbers. I didn't really have a little temperature scale comparison here. That would make it a little easier. But I just did the conversion in my head. And so, of course, you live here long enough, and then you know what 10 degrees Fahrenheit represents. It's really cold. Now there's a formula that allows us to make the exact conversion from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And it reads like this. F equals 9/5 times C plus 32, or equivalently, F equals 1.8 times degrees Celsius plus 32. So in other words, you multiply Celsius temperature by 9/5 or 1.8 and add 32. So let's do that. Let's do number 11. So here, degrees Fahrenheit equals 9/5 times 80 plus 32 and 5 goes into 80 16 times, so it's equal to 9 times 16 plus 32, which is equal to 144 plus 32, or 176 degrees. So that's the corresponding temperature in degrees Fahrenheit is 176 degrees. Similarly, to convert 35 degrees Celsius to degrees Fahrenheit, F, using the same formula, F equals 9/5 times degrees Celsius, or 35 in this case, plus 32, and 5 goes into 35 7 times, so 9 times 7 plus 32, and 6, that's equal to 63, plus 32 is equal to 95 degrees. So that corresponds to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. There's a corresponding formula to convert degrees Fahrenheit to degrees Celsius. It's 5/9 times degrees Fahrenheit minus 32. Or you can also write it this way: degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius equals F minus 32 divided by 1.8. You can use whatever formula works best for you. So let's do a couple of examples here. In number 13, guided solution, we are converting 95 degrees Fahrenheit to degrees Celsius. So it is 5/9 times F minus 32. So we replace F with 95. And so 5/9 times 95 minus 32 is 63. And 9 goes into 63 7 times. And then 5 times 7 is equal to 35. So in other words, 95 degrees Fahrenheit equals 35 degrees Celsius. Similarly, for number 14, we use the same formula. C equals 5/9 times degrees Fahrenheit, which is 113 in this case, minus 32. And 113 minus 32 is 81. So 5/9 times 81. And since 9 goes into 81 9 times, 5 times 9 is 45. So therefore, 113 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to 45 degrees Celsius. And I would encourage you to just use these formulas to become fluent in them. Especially when you're traveling, they come in very handy because, again, the rest of the world is more or less metric, and they use degrees Celsius. So it's nice to have that formula with you, and life will be easier and more fun. Okay, this is the end of section 8.6.